Hi, it's Greg Hansen here. I'm the Vice President for EMEA and LATAM for our Informatica specialists. And I'm here today to talk to you about the effective use of AI in banking, because I genuinely believe that this will separate the leaders from the languishers into the future. Hopefully, throughout the course of today's presentation, you'll see some of the things that financial institutions can do to both retain the market share that they've already got in a very competitive landscape, the use of technologies, standards, and platforms, but also the increasing adoption of artificial intelligence to help make sure that into the future they can scale and offer the type of customer experience that many financial institutions will need to provide in order to remain competitive in what is becoming an increasingly competitive space. So let's start with the world and how it's affecting banking, the trends that we see. Well, it's true that the world is going through a digital transformation right now. It's different maturity in different geographical locations, but most organizations now are going through some form of digital transformation, and so is financial services. We see these types of news reports all the time, and it's no surprise to see this type of headline that we see here. I think we've all seen headlines like this. The world is becoming more digital. To use myself as an example, to be frank, I can't remember the last time that I went into a financial institution, be it insurance or retail banking, and I can't remember the last time that I went into a supermarket. Pretty much for me now, as a person who's traveling quite a lot in my working life, I use the digital world. I use apps on my phone, such as Amazon. And Amazon themselves are a great example of a company who's leveraged their digital assets and strategy. My experience of them is wholly digital. I've never walked into an Amazon store, even though I know they have stores these days in North America. I've never met an Amazon shop assistant or advisor who provides me with any kind of recommendations or products and services. But my experience with them is very high quality. And of course, that's driven by a high quality scalable platform, but it's also their use of data, which separates them from their nearest competitors. If you look at that, it's not just one thing that the industry is facing. There are many changes facing the industry, not just digital transformation. Digital transformation in itself, in many organizations, is a strategic reaction to industry pressures, such as you can see on this slide here. For me, backed by research that Gartner have done, customer experience, or CX, is the new battleground. People will make decisions based upon the experience of digital organizations like Amazon, in my example, and increasingly we'll see in the financial services space that those providers that offer the highest quality digital experience will be the ones that people naturally navigate to. And in that competitive market ground, there are many new non-traditional entrants. Many organizations are now offering niche services rather than the full financial services package, which many of the traditional vendors offer. They're offering niche services at a much lower cost with higher customer experience differentiators. But whilst fintech startups are really disrupting the marketplace, customers are still looking towards traditional suppliers. They trust traditional suppliers. And there is clearly an advantage and potentially economies of scale that those traditional vendors can use to maintain their market share and differentiate themselves from smaller startup organizations who don't have the amount of breadth of data and knowledge about me or you than the 25, 30, or 50 or longer year relationship that a traditional vendor has had with their typical experience. So customers will stay if banks and other financial institutions are prepared to disrupt themselves and innovate. Clearly, a key part of that, of their own innovation, will be to do things like reduce costs to effectively compete, to increase agility to offer new services quickly, offer that higher quality customer experience through digital devices and applications. And one increasing struggle that many organizations need to get on top of is compliance. In an increasingly regulatory world, we need to automate compliance as much as possible. The traditional views of project-centric compliance need to dissipate, and compliance needs to be automated within the organization as a whole. And the reasons for doing this as well are, whilst there are pressures on organizations, In order to create that better customer experience and differentiate ourselves, we need to understand what the customer's expectations of us as financial organizations are. In reality, they're changing quite significantly. There are significant changes in customers' behavior. There is a decreasing amount of loyalty in certainly Generation X and Generation Y, because there is no personal contact with a branch or a person. It's very tempting to quickly swap providers, and increasingly it's easier for organizations with things like U-switch. It's easy for individuals to change as and when required. So there's increased customer expectations, but also there's channel diversification as well. It's not just a traditional one-to-one connection, but there are many other new channels such as WhatsApp, Messenger, Facebook, etc., that are offering that channel diversification that organizations really need to leverage. And disruptors are not just coming from new fintechs, but they're also coming from other organizations in different sectors such as telcos or retail providers who are moving into the banking sector to swallow more market share outside of their traditional verticals. And then there's other technologies such as blockchain and artificial intelligence, which we'll talk about today, that are driving new approaches to help further differentiate and reduce cost. But the reality for many banks is many banks and FinServe organizations can't innovate fast enough to keep themselves relevant. I think this is something we see commonly across many traditional vendors. And therefore, the mindset that they need to get into is the ability to disrupt themselves, to think new and to think differently. And the reality is that it's tempting to think that there is one thing that you can do that can change everything and dramatically increase your competitiveness or your customer experience. But if there is no one silver bullet, when organizations need to go through this type of digital transformation and disrupt themselves, it's not just about one thing. It's about adopting a strategy across a number of different things. That's a strategy and a leadership which supports this strategy. Because rushing to adopt services such as cloud service or AI, believing that that in itself will provide a positive effect is mistaken thinking. Often tactically, that can be the case for an individual single business unit or single product line. But without being part of a wider strategy, this can often lead to more complexity. For example, if you think about cloud adoption that many organizations have gone through, there are many tech-savvy leadership individuals now within financial service institutions. And it's tempting for them to want to do something new, want to differentiate themselves in their own line of business. When approaching their own IT department about how long it will take to implement, how long it will cost, how much it will cost, it's often difficult for them to make progress. So often they'll go outside of the traditional means and adopt cloud services themselves. They will buy cloud because there's no requirement for an existing IT infrastructure. And often there's limited training required for their staff to adopt this born in the cloud type of technology. And so shadow IT is often appearing. And whilst this may benefit a single business line, and often it does, what this actually does to a broader organization is to further fragment data into more and more platforms and systems. And it locks away that key data assets, which are the foundational building block of better customer experience across the brand and the organization as a whole. What we also see, in addition to that, is that when adoption is not part of a broader strategy, there's an increase in not only platforms, but also skill sets, as this slide illustrates. From left to right, you can see the changing dynamics and skill sets over the past 3 to 5 years in each one of these different layers of storage, compute, and visualization, for example. For many organizations, this introduces new issues, such as skill set availability and the cost of those skill sets, along with the challenges of regulatory compliance in a much more complex landscape. Many organizations have done this and now realize that ad hoc or open source coding approaches which can get going quickly don't scale for current and future demands over the longer term. And therefore it's another weight around an organization's neck, which is currently potentially struggling from a traditional deployment and traditional layers of complexity. And quite frankly, let's put that into the context of the CX competitive landscape that we are now in. Just at a time when a customer wants a single digital pane to see all their actions, all their interactions with the financial service organization, with the expectation that they will receive high quality advice and recommendations. We have a real issue, because the reality is for those who don't follow that type of strategy is that it's increasingly hard to achieve because of the fragmentation, limited skill sets, and siloed data. Many organizations right now can't identify a single view of customer across their business lines. They can't understand what products I own, for example, and therefore they are not in a position to offer differentiated advice, products, and services. As you can see from the KPMG report illustrated in this slide, this applies to potentially a third of organizations right now, where they've rushed to adopt what is seen as a silver bullet in cloud and digital transformation platforms, but in reality, they've introduced a new layer of complexity. In fact, the irony there is in relation to cloud adoption. 5 years ago, cloud adoption, according to an annual survey by KPMG and Harvey Nash, 5 years ago, the main reason to move to cloud was cost. But now, the number one reason to move to cloud is actually agility. But rushing to adopt without a strategy will fail. Contrast that with new entrants to the financial services marketplace who don't have the legacy and complexity that many organizations have. And therefore, we see in most recent surveys, such as this one you can see on screen now, and we start to see challenger banks now taking leadership positions in customer service awards. For the first time, a challenger bank took the top spot, and 2 of the top 4 are now challenger banks. And we'll probably see that more and more challenger banks will start to appear in this, which is a retail bank list of the top differentiated services that companies offer. And we see that consistently across many different types of awards. But as these challenger organizations grow, they will start to experience the same complexity and scale as traditional organizations. And if traditional organizations respond with a good strategy, they have the breadth of services and loyalty with customers to win back market share and gaining economies of scale across many business lines versus a small set of products challenger banks typically offer. So whether you're a challenger bank wanting to scale or a more traditional organization wanting to reclaim an advantage, the message is that to reclaim or retain agility, you need to keep things simple. So how do we keep things simple? Well, this starts with a plan around platforms and most critically around data. It's clear that from a platform perspective, cloud technology and cloud platforms provide an obvious choice. But to avoid lock-in to one vendor and to adopt differentiated services, most organizations will likely have a multi-cloud approach. Again, Gartner research suggests that most large organizations will have 5 or more cloud ecosystems and platforms. So to retain that agility across that multi-cloud landscape, it becomes about the effectiveness of your data management strategy. The research above that you can see in the slide is from Gartner, and it's called the Hybrid Integration Platform. It's designed to help organizations focus on the services that they need to manage their data effectively to support that single pane customer experience that we talked about earlier on. I won't go through every individual service that you can see on this slide, but essentially they recommend standardizing in 4 key areas. The 4 key areas are classic data integration problem. Most large organizations in 2025, 60% will still have on-premise applications. And in banking and financial services companies, there are many systems, mainframe-based, that are still in existence and will still be in existence for the next 5 to 10 years. We need to keep them connected to avoid any further fragmentation and siloed of data. So classic integration platform is one thing that organizations need to standardize on. But as we go through that cloud adoption, the second layer is about how we can adopt that new wave of cloud platforms effectively. And the most effective tool to do that is what we call an integration iPaaS, an integration platform as a service, or iPaaS. That is focused on similar sort of data integration challenges as a classic integration platform service, but encapsulates and focuses more around cloud services and usually adopts a microservices architecture in order to keep agility with the pace of change that you see in the cloud. Thirdly, it's about API management platforms as well. So if you think about that customer experience and a device, an iPhone, an application, usually that's driven by APIs in real time servicing those applications. And the scale and management of those APIs within an organization becomes key. So it's key to therefore standardize and simplify around API. And then lastly, what I think is the secret sauce. We talked about things like compliance earlier on. How do we understand how data flows within our organizations? How do we find where customer data resides? How can we be compliant automatically by understanding the types of transformations and lineage and origin of data and what's happened to data within an organization? And that becomes part of adopting an enterprise metadata management platform. Okay, so standardizing on that and having a single pane to see all of your data assets with a Google-like search engine is going to be a differentiator for organizations moving forward. Hence why I think it's the secret service. And simplifying will mean limited skill sets, will mean limited platform choices, and it will mean limited partners required, which will further improve the agility and offer scale for the future. But it's also about our people. It's not just about platform and technologies. It's certainly true that the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning that we will discuss moving forward is going to make a number of front and back office services redundant. But we'll need more people in different areas to support the deployment of these new services. Classic example of that is in the area of data science, which is currently booming. If you look at the amount of jobs on offer for things like data science, it's growing exponentially every year. There's a recent survey by Kickstarter which shows this. Year on year, the amount of data science jobs is increasing by 60% now in 2018 versus 5% back in 2014. So data science is a growing and booming area. And in reality, let's take a look at that, because many of the things that we've done and talked about and discussed already, there is no one silver bullet, and the data science may be another example of that. The data scientist is not a silver bullet. And returns from your data scientists will be limited if you don't get that strategy right that we were talking about before. In reality, data scientists won't provide the cure for bad strategy and bad data, and they won't deliver those differentiated customer experience and services and products we desire unless we focus on supporting them with a good strategy and a good platform. A classic example would be, I pulled this off the internet from some research, and it shows what a data scientist needs in terms of its hierarchy of needs. The reality of this is, look at what the tasks that they are doing. They're collecting data, they're moving data, they're storing data, they're transforming data, they're cleaning data, they're aggregating data. Only when you get to the top of the pyramid are they really doing what I would traditionally call data science. I would draw the line at data science as being more than halfway up that pyramid. In reality, at the recent Informatica World Tour event that we had in London, we had Neil McIver, who's the CDO for the Department of Education in the UK. And he told us that his data scientist team that he's built, 90% of their time is spent at the bottom half of that pyramid, collecting and finding data. And he said of the remaining 10% of a data scientist's time, 90% of that 10% was spent fixing data errors. So in reality, our data scientists are not currently doing data science as a result of poor strategy and poor investment in data management. In reality, those large organizations, when you think about the people side of things, you don't just need a data scientist, you need a data engineer. You need someone responsible for creating high quality data assets that can be easily searched, easily found, and then easily leveraged in data science activities. So that's just one good example of how we need the right people as well as the right platform in order to move forward. And growing pressures mean that being digital is not just enough, going through that digital transformation and delivering that. Because in reality, what we've talked about so far won't be enough into the future. Because managing data is getting harder in the world of data 3.0, as we discussed. Because there is an explosion in data volume. It's now at 20.6 zettabytes per year in 2020 in global data center traffic. There are more and more users clamoring for data all of the time. Those same tech-savvy business leaders we talked about earlier on, creating that shadow IT investment, if we don't, they are clamoring for data, and their line of business staff are clamoring for that data because they realize that data is the differentiator in that new CX world of competition. And to be really truly connected, to understand your customers, you're going to need to integrate new types of data. To understand me, you probably need to think about what likes and dislikes I have, which are more likely to find in data sets outside of a traditional organization's firewall, such as social media, for example, as well as IoT data and mobile data, as well as the traditional enterprise resource pools of data that we see. With IoT platforms, there'll typically be between 20 and 50 billion devices connected by 2022, depending on the research that you believe. So the scale and the volume of data will be like something we've never seen before. And although 60% of organizations will still have on-premise systems in 2025, almost 95% of data traffic will be in the cloud, as you would expect. So I guess when you look at all those things left to right, and then you look about how we can support our people and get our people like data scientists and data engineers focused on what they should be doing, it's about how we simplify. And we simplify by the use of AI, artificial intelligence, to help us and to avoid menial tasks, for example, to get our people focused on what will truly deliver value to the organization. So we'll spend a few minutes talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, because many of the strategies that have been deployed and many of the philosophies that exist in terms of AI have been focused on what I call the consumptive side of AI, in the predictive use of AI and to deliver a differentiated service. But again, AI in itself is not that silver bullet as we discussed earlier on. So what strategies should we deploy to be successful in our AI initiatives? There's also a temptation to think, well, this is too futuristic. This is too far into the future. Do I need to think about this now? And the answer is yes, you need to think about this now. Because in reality, if we look at the banking world, whether people understand it or not, there's a survey done this year in North America, and for back office automation, almost 3/4 of staff now in back office roles, whether they realize it or not, are actually using artificial intelligence on a day-to-day basis to automate tasks that they previously did manually. It's clear that there is a revolution in terms of the amount of digital personal assistants and chatbots that we now see offering recommendations and collecting information for application processes, for example, in banking and financial services. It's clear that we see personalized self-service wealth management and portfolio management through use of AI. And increasingly, AI is used for fraud prevention and security, as well as the analysis of risk, after initiatives such as GDPR came along to really accelerate how we treat and how we offer custodianship on customers' data. And in reality, over the next decade, it's predicted through a survey by an organization called Autonomous that the use of AI over the next 10 years will result in a $450 billion saving by 2030. So quite a significant amount of cost reduction, which will help organizations to further compete and remove some of those shackles of costs and offer more differentiated, cost-effective services. So, as I said, 3/4 of individuals in North America have been exposed to AI. In fact, that number in terms of people is more than 1.2 million in North America using AI on a day-to-day basis within financial services. So I guess the message is it's here and it's here right now. But have the artificial intelligence strategies and deployments so far, have they delivered all the value that was expected? Well, in some cases not. And I think this is to do with a maturity which is now increasing. So just like we saw that there's been an investment in data science, but probably a lack of investment in data engineering, we see the same in the use of artificial intelligence. So in reality, one of the premises I'd like to get across is that artificial intelligence is not just used in the consumptive end, the predictive end, to look and visualize in the results, but AI needs data management, needs tool sets that support those data engineering roles. Those data engineering roles and those individuals, they themselves alone cannot do it alone, because we see those increasing pressures of volume, complexity, variety of sources, and so on. So actually, not only do we need artificial intelligence in the consumptive science end of data management and data visualization, but we actually need artificial intelligence in the data management area, in the ingestion area, to make sure that we can connect to all our data sources, that we can understand what data sources we need to use to be more productive in a specific prototype analysis. And critically, we can use artificial intelligence at scale to manage data, to cleanse data, to make sure we can identify a single view of Greg Hansen, for example, which is really going to be the key determining factor in delivering that CX experience that most financial institutions strive to get towards. Just some examples of how that looks. AI in data management looks like this. Any application of AI and machine learning will only be as good as the quality of data collected. The same rules still apply, that if you put garbage in to a machine learning algorithm, you will get garbage out. So not only do we need to focus on AI in that machine learning consumptive area, here we can see that data management needs AI to manage and monitor that scale. So we can see that AI automation in data management will reduce the need for manual intervention by almost 20%, freeing time up to do more productive activities. 50% of data science tasks and curation will be automated, resulting in higher productivity for those data scientists and more differentiation for the organization. So it's clear that we need artificial intelligence in the data management layer. So how do we approach that? Well, in order for AI to be successful in any organization, it's back to that strategy area where we need best of breed products and standardized best of breed products. But we also need AI to be able to integrate our roles and our people into this. So it's not just about a development framework and a development GUI. It's about providing through the same platform the types of tools that a data scientist, a data engineer, a data analyst, a risk officer, a privacy officer can all use to integrate on and can all use to work with data, rather than having a myriad of different technologies and tool sets which will add to that complexity. And it's all about doing that on a platform which has metadata at the center. As we discussed as part of that Gartner hybrid integration platform, metadata really becomes the core foundational area to offer intelligent artificial intelligence around data management and offer automated compliance and insight into your data. So Informatica, just to tell you a little bit about us, how we can help in this area, Informatica has several products which are designed to help in the area of data management. There's data integration, which offers integration of data from traditional on-premise systems. And then there's iPaaS that offers integration in the cloud, built upon a microservices architecture, which allows you to rapidly combine your on-premise data with any form of cloud data that you may have there. There are specific data engineering tools as well that data engineers can use to push down at scale integration, transformation, and cleansing, traditionally for the use of building data lakes built out of high quality data assets. And then as part of those types of initiatives, we need data quality and governance. So having governance screens, analyst screens, data steward screens, and the algorithms, machine learning, and data quality rules underneath that to keep data assets high quality and pristine to offer that CX experience. While we're thinking that CX experience, master data management or a single view of X becomes key. Because in reality, most large organizations need to get to the point that they understand Greg Hansen, all the products and services I have with an organization, and what my likes and dislikes in order to offer me recommendations and potentially cross-sell and upsell to me. And then that standardization and having metadata at the heart of everything we do offers the potential of building automatically an enterprise data catalog. Unlike the current situations where many organizations fail to even understand where their customer data exists, this type of automated enterprise data catalog offers you a Google-like interface to search for data that you require. So there are many use cases for that. Risk officers could look at where customer data is to make sure that the right governance and security is applied to where that data persists. They might use it for freedom of information requests or right to be forgotten requests. Data scientists might use that search engine to find relevant sources of data that support their prototyping. And line of business managers would use it to understand the types of products and services that might be interesting to their specific demographic that they want to go after in the next campaign. And then when we see areas of risk around data, it's important to be able to secure that data. And so obfuscation, masking, and dynamic data masking are areas in our security portfolio that help organizations to automate the implementation of governance around data. It's all about time to market as well. So one of the key things about those products is those products alone will not deliver differentiation. Again, back to that silver bullet message. One of the things we've worked quite hard over in the last few years is to deploy applications on top of our product sets. So things like Customer 360 application gives you probably about 80 to 90% of the things you'll need to create a single view of Greg Hansen are already available out in the box. So you can really get to time and value quickly. In fact, an organization like Philips, for example, mastered all their products, of which they've got millions, in as little as 12 weeks to get a single view of product, which is a key initiative and a key differentiator in the marketplace. But underpinning all those things is an artificial intelligence layer. Now, at Informatica, we call that CLAIRE. CLAIRE is short for clairvoyant, offering you the predictability around data management. CL stands for cloud, AI for artificial intelligence, and RE for real-time engine. So we can deliver this at scale and in real time. And it's focused around data management to fill the void that currently exists in many organizations. We talked about making the data scientists more productive and getting them to focus on science. So what does CLAIRE do? Well, first of all, and most importantly, she builds that type of enterprise data catalog that organizations need. And an enterprise data catalog needs to collect 4 key areas of metadata. Technical, which is obviously the development side, what the transformations are, how data is amended. It's business. So whilst at a technical level, we may describe data as customer_ID, for example, in the business context, that means customer name. Operational usage of data, so where is data flowing, for example, what's the lineage of information, what's the scale of information, for example. All those are examples of operational flow of data. And then there's usage. So how is data volume scale? Are there any data propagating through that are outside current rules that we have within our organization? Do we need to amend? Do we need to adjust? So all those 4 key areas of metadata can be automatically collected and used to build a comprehensive catalog of enterprise information assets. What physically does that look like, though? In a data management artificial intelligence layer, these are the types of things that are happening. So in order to build an automated catalog, first and foremost, you need to potentially automatically integrate data, which can be done. So you can point the solution at a raw set of data, and just by using 25 years of experience and metadata, we can look and make a best guess as to what that data is and how it should be mapped and integrated into an organization's platform. Whilst doing that, we can scan the content and say, well, this is what this data looks like. It's customer data, it's credit card data, it's address data. We can classify, we can tag, and we can collect all that information, provide it into that catalog automatically. It's also doing things like growing and amending as things change over time. It's a concept that we constantly call things like schema drift, where things change over time. Data itself may change. Individual columns will increase or decrease in data. You might get new ranges for data that we've never had before. So there are constant changes, and often this can be one of the key reasons why integration of data fails, for example, and issues in overall data management landscape, or even the online systems that organizations provide. If you haven't got that type of intelligence built into the management layer, then potentially you're at risk of failures. So we can deal with that type of schema drift automatically. We can also scale automatically as well. So if the volumes increase by tenfold overnight, assuming that you're in a cloud world where you can offer consumptive services, you can automatically scale and leverage more and more compute power without the need to recode. So those are the types of things that a artificial intelligence engine can offer in terms of traditional activities. But also it's offering recommendations as well. So recommendations around things you should think about over the next few months and years. Do you need to invest in more resources? Do you need to invest in a higher amount of individuals around data quality? These are the types of things that can come out of an artificial intelligence engine designed specifically for data management. And if you think about how you use that data management AI, well, it can be across 4 key areas that we typically find. You'll typically see that cloud hybrid adoption, so adoption of new cloud services. You can see it and leverage it in the building of things like data lakes, and increasingly that's a shift towards the cloud in data lakes with vendors like Snowflake and Amazon and Microsoft really accelerating their investments in those areas. In the CX world, it's about 360 engagement, insights into customers. And then it's also about governance and privacy, securing data, being compliant, and offering custodianship of data to your customers. The at-scale message means that can we manage the types of volumes required? Well, our own organization, we're now processing more than 8 trillion rows of data for 8,000 clients every month. So it's a pretty significant amount. And to give you an illustration of scale, that volume is doubling every 6 months. So, and Claire, artificial intelligence-wise, is helping to do that without us needing to massively redesign the platform on an ongoing basis. And it's supporting all the types of vendors in the cloud portfolio that you would expect in order for you to be successful. And whilst I told you, hopefully, the areas of investment that we've made, it's also recognized that Informatica is the market leader when it comes to those segments. So if you go back to the Gartner recommendations of the 4 key areas of metadata, ETL, iPaaS, and API, although you can't see it, Informatica is the top right-hand corner for all of these different quadrants for Gartner. So top right for integration platform, top right for iPaaS, top right for metadata management. We have product level integration, sharing our metadata with the market leading API platform, which is Google Apigee currently, but it's easy to integrate other API platforms such as TIBCO Mashery if required. So it forms a great and an obvious choice to standardize and simplify to overcome some of the issues that we discussed earlier on. I thought I'd close in showing you a visualization of how Informatica is helping individuals within organizations right now with the use of AI. So these are typically the types of people that you'll find in that data management and data science area, and how do they use AI that we provide? Well, as a data engineer, it's potentially all about productivity and creating those high quality data assets. As I mentioned before, using artificial intelligence here, we can do things like automate the integration of data, what we call intelligent data discovery, and limiting the amount of physical mapping work someone like a data engineer needs to do. In order to bring in other line of business people on the same platform, like data analysts, data stewards, chief risk officers, we've got personalized dashboards for each individual type of role. So data analysts here can see the quality of data that they're responsible for and can focus on the tasks required to improve that data accuracy within the business. From a data discovery science perspective, we can leverage that enterprise data catalog to find the type of data that I should include in my prototyping exercise. Here you can see an illustration of how we use the graph technology databases underneath our enterprise data catalog to provide a really graphical visualization of how data relates to one another, offering unrivaled capability for data scientists to find the right data within their organization to support their study. And then it's also about providing them similarly with the types of technologies they need to then do their additional work with data. So data preparation technologies, like you can see here, carry the same recommendations from the data engineering and data management layer into the data science layer to make sure there's standardization across those types of roles. And we're using a nice little interface which reflects the type of tools that data scientists use, like Excel, Access, and other, to really amend the data, introduce new sources of data that they may want to prototype with, but keep all that in the same metadata framework so you can then take it, understand what was done to create the result of the science prototype, and then quickly implement that into production. And then on the CDO side, you can see the implementation of an enterprise data catalog gives you lineage, gives you that automated compliance of the origin of data, the transformation of data that's happening within an organization. That is a massive productivity aid and a visualization for CDOs and chief risk officers that currently doesn't exist within organizations right now. So let me finish by summarizing. I think the future is now. It's clear that in order to deal with the challenges both that we've got now within our organizations, if you're a challenger bank wanting to grow and scale, a challenger organization, or if you're an organization that's been in business for a long time and will just want to reclaim and reestablish market position, it's about adoption of the right platform, the right technologies and the right strategies to be able to do that. And really the future is now. It's now that we need to do that. And in summary, what I'll finish with is what we should do to try and, as organizations, moving forward. Well, firstly, develop a data strategy and place it in the DNA of an organization. Select and move to more modern technology platforms such as cloud. And then to use Gartner's research, standardize to reclaim that agility. Whilst we move to those more modern platforms, let's not make things more complex. We're going to need an enterprise metadata catalog with a Google-like search front end. It will be a differentiator for many organizations moving forward, accelerating data science and automating compliance. That catalog can really provide the foundation for self-service and data democratization. And it will make that a reality in many organizations that currently want that, but haven't got an ability to do it right now. Ensure the investment in data quality through not only the use of data stewards, but also the use of a platform to help make sure that we can use AI to correct data where possible, and then highlight rules that need to be amended in order to maintain high quality, pristine data to offer that differentiated customer experience. And let's make sure that we adopt artificial intelligence, not just in the consumptive, predictive analytics and visualization world, but also across the data management layer as well. Without it, we're not going to be able to scale and take advantage of our data assets into the future. We'll just be overwhelmed. So that concludes the presentation. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed what I had to say, then please, you can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is there, @HandsomedJ. And I look forward to receiving questions from many of you who are listening. Thank you.